Born from the fires of the Quake modding scene and driven by the nostalgic spirit of 90s shooters, Wrath is poised to be the next big blood-spewing thing in retro first-person shooters. But in a subgenre that is quickly becoming overcrowded, does Wrath have what it takes to stick out in the crowd? What's up everybody, I'm Kirk, and today we'll be taking a look at the latest early access build of Wrath. But before all of that, please be sure to subscribe to this channel for more videos that simply won't let go of the past. Alright, let's dive in. Developed by Kill Pixel and published by 3D Realms, Wrath is a love letter to the shooters of the 90s, taking lots of inspiration from classics like Doom and Quake and remixing their mechanics to form its own unique spin on the genre. Wrath has been in early access since late 2019, and a few of you have asked me to take a look at it. To be honest, I opted to wait for the full release, which was originally going to be sometime around now, early 2021. But unfortunately, due to COVID, the full release has been pushed to summer 2021. But with that delay came a new content update, supposedly the last before launch. So since I've been hankering to tackle this one, I figured I should throw my 2 cents in for this final form of early access. I can tell you right now, I like the shotgun. Just a heads up, you guys may notice some screen tearing in this footage. That is not from the game, that's on my end. I was having an issue with my capture card. Apologies. Of all the retro-style shooters we've been getting lately, Wrath is one of the most authentic, as it was actually developed with the now 25-year-old Quake engine. Okay, in actuality, it was made with the Dark Places engine, an improved variant of the Quake engine that originated in the mod scene. And let me tell ya, Kill Pixel has made Dark Places shine brightly. Wrath's sprawling levels feature some great attention to detail, crumbling buildings slowly being retaken by nature and earth, bits of foliage all around, weather effects, and awesome touches like oversized enemies busting open doorways. The texture work is fantastic. Look at this cave wall here. Look at the amount of dimension this texture creates. It's great. There are some drawbacks. Surprisingly, the performance was a little on the shaky side for me. Some frame dips and hitching throughout. Definitely when battles got large and hectic, but also for things like saving. I messed around with my settings to mixed results. Could be something on my end, could also be this old tech being pushed in ways it wasn't intended. It's nothing that will ruin the game, just something to keep in mind. This first batch of levels alternates between 3 different aesthetics: spooky gothic castle, spooky snowy place, and spooky forested ruins. They look awesome, but if I had to be a little picky, they did feel a little vanilla to me. We're definitely pulling a lot from the standard dark fantasy playbook here. I couldn't help but yearn for a little more of a twist in the way these places look, something to make them feel a little more unique. And if I had to be annoyingly picky, sometimes the environments can look a little samey. For example, this section of the Undercrofts level where the same brick texture is repeated over and over again. Despite all that, this is a magnificent looking game that proves you can breathe a lot of life into obsolete tech. Big quotes over obsolete. I especially love the enemy designs, and the gore effects are a thing of beauty in this game. Oh, the way the enemies go splat and fall to jibs, blood exploding everywhere, oh, it's amazing. Man, there really is no way to talk about gore effects without sounding like a maniac, but they really are vile and wonderful. Mechanically, Wrath is about as good as it gets for a shooter of this type. Breakneck speed and jumping that is perfect for bunny hops, with shooting that will make you believe you're firing sledgehammers instead of bullets. But while it's Quake tech and Quake feel, do not assume this is a Quake recreation with a fresh coat of paint. Wrath distinguishes itself in several key ways, and the first is in its level design. Wrath's levels are big. Surprisingly big. The current early access build features 5 levels, all of which are immediately accessible from a hub world. The hub world is a great touch. It kind of reminds me of the hub worlds from old 90s 3D platformers, or maybe a twisted version of a Zelda overworld, complete with its own giant dead tree. 5 levels might not sound like a lot. However, on my first playthrough, each level took me close to an hour to complete, sometimes longer. Mind you, I was playing on hard with a humbling amount of deaths. They're pretty epic. I mean, if these were made in a modern engine, it would still be impressive. Keep in mind too, the full release is planned to have 3 hub worlds with 15 missions total, and if the remaining 10 missions are anything like this initial 5, then hoo boy are we in for a content-rich shooter. Size is one thing though. It's the quality that matters. And you know what? These levels were designed pretty damn good. Typically they start you out in more linear, traditional areas with plenty of corridor shootouts, but eventually they open up into a larger hub area that branches out into more locations. And the player usually has a choice in what they want to tackle first. Level progression is based on good old-fashioned key hunting and switch pulling, which of course brings with it combat. Lots of combat. My favorite of the levels is the Priory. The beginning of the level has you murdering monsters on the outside of the massive Priory, exploring the snow-covered grounds and platforming to find the many secret nooks and crannies. Eventually, you gain access to the Priory itself, an abandoned, crumbling place with many rooms, towers, basement. You can even reach the rooftops at one point. I love this style of level design, making a whole giant location for non-linear exploration, with clear thought into what this place was and how it functioned at one point. And the finale of it, well, actually, I don't want to spoil the finale, but let me tell you, it soars. If there's a small gripe, it's a little too easy, therefore a little too tempting to bottleneck the hefty amount of enemies through doorways and narrow halls. And if you ask me, I think Wrath makes for a better out-in-the-open shooter than a corridor shooter. Difficulty in Wrath is all about the numbers. Most enemies on their own don't pose much of a threat, but when the game decides it wants to start kicking your ass, it throws mobs of them at you. And since most of them have a projectile attack, it's not long before this first-person shooter starts feeling like a bullet hell. Let's talk about some of these enemies. The game will start you off with some pushovers, brittle zombies, and deformed soldier types, but soon you'll become real accustomed to the blue meanies and green cyst guys who will pester you with projectiles and kill you in death. This is a game where you have to keep your distance, which may feel a little weird to some of you Doomslayers out there. But then again, those who are lacking in dodging and aiming skills will muscle up quickly in this game. One of the most common and dangerous foes you'll face are the three-mouthed heretics, able to shoot you with rapid fireballs as well as charge you, which is terrifying. They can be a little overwhelming, tough to take down and tougher to get away from. I think the developer is quite fond of them too, since they love spawning them in multiples every chance they get. Yeah, you're gonna get tired of these guys real fast. Another dangerous fiend are the Widows, ugly, naked, screaming zombie types that chase you relentlessly and will rip you to shreds if they catch you. Reminded me of a lighter version of the Witches from Left 4 Dead. Lighter only because a well-placed shotgun blast will keep you safe. As of this build, Wrath features 6 weapons with more on the way. Naturally, the first weapon you get is the pistol, a multi-barreled hunk of steel death with a 3-round alternate fire. It's a solid appetizer for this feast of destruction, followed by the double-barrel shotgun, which is a savory first course and a mighty stick of boom. It's the right amount of damage with a generous amount of range. It's alt-fire, a charged-up slingshot that ricochets hot shards all over the environment. Although I'm a little skeptical about how much damage these actually do. This bloody contraption is the Fang Spitter, which, you guessed it, spits fangs. It's basically the machine gun. Its alternate fire shoots 2 fangs at the same time and sounds like a howitzer. It's not as accurate, but it packs more of a punch. And the heavy weapon is the Slag Cannon, which shoots globs of molten hot slag. It's powerful and great for taking down the tougher enemies, assuming you have the ammo for it. The Booger Shooter, though, is one to highlight. Okay, it's actually called the Retcher, but I call it the Booger Shooter because it looks like it shoots boogers. The Booger Shooter is one of the strongest weapons in the game. Its standard attack can splatter many of the low-level enemies, and its alt-fire can make short work of the stronger enemies. Balancing it out is its shorter arc-like range and ammo that is on the scarce side. Get comfortable with this when you get it, because it makes a huge difference when the game starts badgering you with larger tank-like enemies. Also, if it shot straight and faster, it'd be a snot rocket. Moving on. Last but certainly not least is your melee weapon, the Ruination Blade, and the Ruination Blade is dope. It does the basic slashies, but its alt fire is what makes me smile. A charged up lunging attack that has some nice distance, able to make short work of a lot of the enemies. But what makes this sucker fun is that if you charge it up and release it mid-jump, it will lunge you forward further, making it an invaluable tool for platforming and secret hunting. The real secret weapons of this game, though, are the artifacts. These are timed abilities you'll find hidden throughout the map, accessed by holding down the scroll wheel of the mouse. I recommend changing that binding though, because for me, it wasn't super comfortable. Artifacts can make the difference in the crazier fights. One drains enemies of their life to replenish yours. Another creates a dome that deflects projectiles. And another makes you invincible at the cost of your own health. There's even one that turns enemies against each other, which on paper is awesome, but the monster infighting leaves a little to be desired. Yeah, you two just take your time. I'll be over here when you're done. I have no problems with the artifacts, but I'm not a fan of the menu for selecting them. Sliding your mouse left to right to left over the tightly packed selections doesn't feel very precise. I wish my mouse would lock in place over them so I had an easier time selecting them. Perhaps a radial menu would be better here, but there might be too many selections for that. Either way, I feel like this could be worked on some more. All in all, combat is outstanding in Wrath. It's well balanced with challenging enemies that will demand a lot of skill from the player. This was designed for the hardcore and it shows, because Wrath is relentless. Enemies are around every corner and ambushes are constant. As they should be. This is a first-person shooter. But I'm not kidding, you fight a lot in Wrath, and you will rarely feel safe. In fact, sometimes it felt like enemies were spawning every couple of steps. Walk into a room, enemies. Walk up the stairs, enemies. Find a secret, enemies. Flip a switch, enemies. Kill the enemies, enemies. Take 2 steps to the left, enemies. There were times I half expected to look up and see Kylo Ren standing atop the level screaming more. Don't get me wrong, I love that this game throws everything at you. Boring is not a word I would use to describe Wrath, but there were a few times I just went, God damn guys, can I have a breather? Can I explore for a second without the risk of being piled on by a mob of heretics? Great, as soon as I grab this key, it's going to be hell on earth. Oh, okay, so now they don't show up? Not every level is crazy like this, but majority of this game so far is a workout, and I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world if they toned it down a little. The pace at which this game goes can be exhausting. Granted, I was playing on a harder difficulty and doing long sessions to get this game ready for review, so maybe take that critique with a grain of salt. However, one thing that can exacerbate this is the game's unique save system. There is no manual saving in Wrath. Saving is done in 2 ways. 3 if you count the autosaves when teleporting from the hub world. You can use save shrines within each level, usable only once, and you can save with collectible soul tethers, which the player can use anywhere. That's right, kids, a limited save system in a first-person shooter. Oh, the horror. And yes, if you die, all progress after that save point will be lost. I actually have a lot of respect for this system. There's a whole layer of tension and urgency added when the player can't rely on the safety blanket of saving. It's a feeling not far off from the first playthrough of an old-school Resident Evil. It can lead to frustration though, the type of frustration that made me want to pour Jim Beam all over my computer. Bitch. Obviously, since there are only so many tethers in each level, there's a chance you will run out. I know my dumbass did, a few times actually. Which means I had a fair amount of progress to repeat whenever I died. Sometimes over and over and over. And it wasn't like I had to repeat a room, nah. I would find myself in situations where I had to repeat several rooms, re-killing the same hordes over and over, on top of rediscovering a secret and recollecting health and ammo. And nothing is more enraging when you finally get through a tough series of rooms, only for some hidden enemy around the corner to cheap shot you and cost you all that progress. Oh boy, there were some boiling rage quits in this one. But I can't moan about it too much because obviously it was my own damn fault. There's a get good quality to this game. Wrath gives you everything you need to succeed. You have plenty of ammo, you have the artifacts, which really are the secret weapon for when things get difficult. The enemies have clear attack patterns and their placements do not change. The difficulty is perfectly fair. The game is challenging you to learn the ins and outs of each level. And if that means putting yourself in a tough position because you used one too many soul tethers, so be it. A downside is that it might make you play more conservative and risk adverse, but these levels are fun enough for repeat playthroughs, and it's then you might challenge yourself to get through them quicker and more efficient. Hell, you might even challenge yourself to do a no tether run for bragging rights. Oh, not a bad idea for a Steam achievement. And I mean, what better way to challenge a seasoned FPS player who has played a million games similar to Wrath than making them strategize around a system they normally take for granted. It will turn some players off of this game, for sure. And once again, I think toning down some of the enemy counts will help ease some of this frustration. But for those who embrace it, I think they'll find it will make them a better player all around. Anybody familiar with my channel knows I've played quite a few of these old school style shooters, and admittedly, I was a little skeptical about whether or not this one would wow me. But after spending time with Wrath, I've come away impressed. Yes, this is yet again a remix of the classics of id Software and 3D Realms, but Wrath is elevated by its outstanding level design, hard-hitting, challenging combat, and unique touches like the save system, which, yes, can lead to some frustration, but it was rewarding being kept on my toes. Plus, nothing makes me happier than seeing 25-year-old tech used so beautifully. So, what's left for Wrath? Well, according to the developer, the full version will feature, once again, 15 levels, 3 hub worlds, 10 artifacts, 9 weapons, and 15 enemies and bosses, as well as multiplayer and full mod support. Wowza. And I wouldn't blame some of you for waiting to see if the full release accomplishes this before you put down $25 for early access. But if Wrath is able to pull off its remaining content on par or better than what's available now, there's a good chance this could be the crown jewel of the new old school style shooters. And that's coming from a guy who is always tempted to start another playthrough of Dusk. Will Kill Pixel and 3D Realms be able to pull it off? Well, be sure to check back to this channel for my opinion when the full game drops this summer. Please let me know in the comments your thoughts on Wrath, if it's something you're currently or thinking about playing, and what improvements you'd like to see come to the full game. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe, like, and share with your friends. It is a massive help for this channel. Speaking of Dusk, here's a video on Dusk. Yay, Dusk! I post videos weekly, so be sure to ring that bell so you're the first to see them. I'm Kirk, and thank you for watching this video. Stay safe out there.